Hello, hello. How are you? I'm Teresa with Teresa Rene Art, and I'm streaming live today on my page, the Teresa Rene Art page, and the Pentart page. I hope you guys are doing well. I am streaming from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm here to, we're going to be doing an oil painting today, this one behind me. We're going to be placing the figure in. Last week, if you joined me last week, we did the background with new Artemisia paints, the acrylic paints. Today, we're going to be switching over and we're going to be using oils for the figure part. So make sure to say hello when you come on. My studio is set up, my configuration is a little bit different than I'm used to. Hello, Sue. Thanks for joining. It might take me a minute to get myself situated and oriented, but I've been on backstage for a while now, kind of playing with the camera angle. So I think we're going to be okay. But anyway, hope you guys are doing great. Make sure to say hello. And if you're watching on replay, make sure to type in #replay so our friends at Pentart know that you are here. You guys, I am just loving the new Artemisia line. I'm so thrilled to be able to share this with you guys live today. I've been painting portraits for a little while now, a little over a year and a half. I took some classes, and it was one thing I always wanted to do, was to learn how to paint portraits. So I'm so thrilled to be able to do that and marry my love of mixed media into realist painting. So we've got an hour, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing what's called kind of color blocking. It's going to be a little bit like the initial stages will look obviously unfinished because they're the initial stages, but over the next couple of weeks, we're going to continue to layer and refine. So the first step is to kind of layer in some general shapes. I'm going to be talking about the paint colors that I'm choosing. We're going to be mixing them together so you'll get an idea of how to mix skin tones. If you've never done that before, this should be exciting for you. So I've got my second camera set up. Hello, Mara. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Hope you're doing well. So I've got my second camera set up that has my palette over here, and we're going to switch the camera view to my, I've got a camera here behind me, and somehow I got myself, that's not the view we want to see. We want to switch it to this. So hopefully you guys can see my palette there. I'm going to make this one just a little bit larger. There we go. So that can be a little bit smaller down there. The main thing you guys want to see is my painting. Let's see if I can straighten this out just a touch. And hopefully this view is good. If not, let me know. That's about as close as I can get without having the equipment in my way. So we're going to get started on the color mixing, you guys. I'm using a flexible knife. This is a Holbein knife, and I'm just going to use this to mix my colors up. I might have to play around a little bit. Hopefully my face doesn't get too much in the view here. Actually, you know what I'll do is, for now, while I'm mixing the colors, let's make Sorry about that, guys. I'm had myself muted. I've just been talking and talking over here, and my other camera is behind me. So can you hear me, guys? Can you hear me okay now? Thanks, y'all, for letting me know. I was just kind of talking about the colors here, but hopefully you can hear me better now. And I'm speaking facing the opposite direction. So I'll try to raise my voice a little bit so you can hear me. All right. So what I was saying was my Naples yellow is a different brand because I don't have the Pentart Naples yellow, but they actually do have a Naples yellow. So let's just pretend that this is the Pentart one and it would work exactly the same. Okay. So let's mix up some skin tones. What we're going to be doing is mixing up just kind of some generic colors for Caucasian skin. And the first thing I'm going to do before I do any of that is this is burnt sienna, but I actually, more often than not, I use a color called transparent oxide, which is like kind of a more orangey color than what this is. And so I'm actually going to convert my burnt sienna into something a little more orangey. Because since I don't have my normal transparent oxide red, that's going to give me something a little bit closer to what I'm used to working with. Let's take a touch of this red and a little bit more of this permanent. And that's going to give me a more orangey tone to this burnt sienna, which is kind of what I'm used to. All right. And then I'm going to take some of that and a little bit of this sap green to create a really dark color. Kind of my darkest darks. Maybe I'll mix a little bit of blue in there to create a nice deep brown. And you might say, well, why am I making a brown since I already have this color raw umber over here? Well, the chromatic colors give you a little bit more depth. They also do less of what's called sinking in. So sinking in is a problem with earth tones where when the paint starts to dry, the color tends to become very dull and matte. So a lot of times I like to just make my browns with chromatic colors so that I avoid the sinking in problem. And then it's a deeper, richer color than just the raw umber by itself. Sometimes I'll go even a step further. Like I'm going to add some black. I'm going to take some black and I'm going to take this brown and I'm going to add a little bit of this blue and a little bit of this mixture here to make an even darker version, but it's still got some high chroma color in there. So you don't get as much sinking in with a mixture like this. And I need that for her hat. So we're starting with some of these. Let's mix up some more skin tone colors here. So I'm going to take some yellow ochre, a little bit of my Naples, and do sort of a medium mixture, kind of a light brown color, if you will. And I'm taking it against my picture to say, okay, I've mixed up a medium brown. Where would I use that? And I'm noticing here that my sort of my midtones are actually a little bit more green than brown. So I'm going to just add some sap green into that to cool it down a little bit because I'm getting a little bit too warm there in some of my midtones. I'm going to put my study here down to the side. So my study is a nice helpful reference. And I do have some cool tones. So you might not be able to see it, but there are some cool tones in the skin. So that's going to be a helpful mixture. Let's go ahead and do some, you kind of think of skin as like a beigey color. Let's go ahead and do that now with a little touch of that, a little touch of my burnt sienna, and just a touch of, actually really like that, but let's take a look at that. It's still giving a little too warm, or a little too yellow, I guess I should say. Let's get a little bit of this cad red, which is going to make it a little more peachy. So that's a nice, it is a nice peachy color. It's a little too orangey, a little too dark. Let's lighten it up a little bit with some white. Okay. So here we kind of have a nice basic looking skin tone, and I'm getting closer to the actual color of her skin and the midtones. I need to go a little bit lighter in some areas. Maybe add a little more of this one and a touch more pink and a little more white. So I'm just getting some pools here, and then I'm going to make some variations of the pools. So I'm just taking my palette knife and kind of comparing it overall, value-wise, tone-wise, to the colors on her face and her skin. And then, you know, I sort of use these basic mixtures to then kind of go a little bit further and refine. So I need to look at the colors in her cheeks and start getting a couple more rose tones. Hi, Linda. How are you? Let's get... That's going to be a little too crazy. Let's get, there's some pinkish tone. Let's get a little more of this. Oh, I accidentally got some orange in there. That's okay. These mixtures don't have to be, they're not scientific. They don't have to be exact. So that's a good one kind of for the cheek area, maybe a little bit in the forehead and kind of around the eyes. I see a lot of this reddish color. Let's actually create one. Let's do one that's a little bit lighter version of this as well. Okay, that is not what I wanted. Let's scrap this one completely. My palette knife accidentally hit the yellow, which I didn't want to do. Let's start over. I'm at an awkward angle here than what I'm used to. We're just going to start over on that one. Let me get a little bit of more of this Naples, y'all. The Naples, again, the Artemisia does have a Naples, but I didn't get it. So I would be using that like interchangeably here with the colors that I am using. All right. All right, there's a nice base. Let's add a little more pink to that. That's a little more orangey. That's too orange. Let's add a little more alizarin to make it a little more rosy. There's a fine line between pink and orange, y'all. And the skin tones, human skin does a fair amount of both pink and orange. So you need kind of mixtures of both, if you will. Let's go a little bit lighter here. And I want decent sized piles. Okay. And I think that may be enough to get us started. I want something a little bit deeper, a little more red. A little more reddish yellow, maybe. Because I do have some darks here in her skin tones, in her underarm areas. There we go. That's a little more reddish mid-tone value. So I got a green mid-tone and a reddish mid-tone. And then sometimes, and they're about the same value-wise. So what I'm trying to do is get a good mix of color and value. So darks, mid-tones, and lights. And that's going to kind of give me a base to start with. We'll put in our lightest lights later, but right now we're going to be just working on the face. So I've got a pretty good range here to start with. And I think let's just go from there. Let me make this one a little bit bigger. There you go. So you can see where I'm pulling from. And okay, so hopefully that angle is okay. Let's get, so the brushes that I'm using a filbert, a couple of filberts, and I'm going to be using some rounds. I'm going to put my paint, I've got a painting glove, y'all. My hands start to cramp up sometimes when I'm painting, so this gives me some compression. I'm going to take a little bit of linseed oil, drop that in there in case my paint starts to get too dry. And this I will set off to the side. I don't need that right now. And I'm going to be using a round brush, some filberts, some flats. I think the first thing that I'll do is I will, let's take and bring in that hat. Let's work on the hat first. And we can use this black, this kind of chromatic black that we made with our hat for our hat. So I'm taking just a little bit of linseed oil to dampen my brush, and let's come on and let's get this hat in. All right. My angle's a little bit awkward, so we're gonna make it work though. So I'm just gonna take, so this is just a filbert soft synthetic brush. I buy my brushes at rosemary.com. They're based in the UK. They have really the best selection of artist brushes. And this is just going to be black. So I'm using that chromatic mixture that I made. And I will take a flat brush around the edges. I'm just kind of doing the big masses first. And then I'll start to move the painting around in order to get the sides. So the background is a good bit darker than my reference image and even really the study. And I think I'm okay with that. If we're going to play with it and see how we like it. If we don't like it, we can always lighten up the background with acrylics because I'm not going to be painting any oils over here. So we can always lighten it up if we need to. All right, so just going to take it and twist it around a little bit, y'all, so I can work with it a little bit better. It's just a flat black mass. There's nothing special happening in the hat, no highlights or color shifts necessarily. So I'm just painting it black. And then we'll just take a brush with a flat edge and fill in the rest. Kind of go around the finger and the hair. How are y'all doing today? Anybody doing anything exciting or fun? Thanks for being here. I really appreciate y'all coming on. I love the way the new Artemisia paints handle. They are every bit as good as the other paints that I'm using. So they'll get worked into my regular yeah, and this is like this is a compression glove, so it's kind of serving two purposes. I normally don't, I don't worry too much about gloves when I'm painting with oils, unless I'm using like lead whites, which I do use sometimes. All right. Okay, so all right, so I'm kind of just going around this sort of like a pencil because this has a nice flat edge and I'm trying to get some crisp lines here. Thank you, Sue. I appreciate that. Yeah, Rosemary is where I get my brushes. They're based out of the UK. They ship pretty fast. Their customer service is just incredible. And the line that I like the best is called Eclipse. So they're synthetic. I use the rounds, the filberts, and the flats. And the fans. Keep checking my view to make sure y'all can see. All right, so now we'll just go hit around this hairline here. Yeah, when I'm painting, I turn my canvas a lot of ways to help me get to where I need to paint, especially if it's just a solid color like this. I'll double check my hairline when I flip this back over. Okay. All right, let's flip this back over. That looks pretty good. Yeah, so my hairline is here. Okay. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, so now I'm going to clean my brush. I'm using mineral spirits, odorless mineral spirits. Pentart does have one called White Spirit, which you could use. I'm using Gamsol today. I'm just trying to get some of that color off. All right, so now we're going to block in some just general skin tones, you guys. Oops. So this brush I've used. This one I've used. I'm going to use, for this, I'm going to use a round. I keep using the same brushes over and over, so I have a selection that I'm used to. And I just cleaned all these, so they're ready to go. All my rounds are here. So we're going to use a round. This is a rosemary. It's a number 4 eclipse pointed round. So it's got a point on it. And I'm going to be using this for some of these bigger masses. So here in the cheek area, it's going to be a little bit darker. Might even take a little bit of, you know what? Sometimes it's nice, helpful to have a mixture of purple that you can sort of mix into. So I'm going to go ahead and mix up some purple as well. It's a nice chromatic dark color. So in her cheek area, she's got a little bit of, it's red. Like it's a little purplish, kind of a purplish brown, right? Just right here in this cheek area. And sometimes it's like, oh, that looks pretty dark. But remember, this is a very, I'm beginning my painting on a white background and it's surrounded by other white areas. So let's go a little bit redder here. I'm just trying to deepen up some of my, this is more of a rose color, so I wanted to get a little more rosy in here. So sometimes it's hard to see color because you're looking at it on its own and not relative to what's around it. So it's hard to judge a little bit on a stark white backdrop. So I generally like to tone my canvases first, or tone I like to tone the picture first. But in this case, I didn't do that. So I'm sort of working without, you know, without a guide in terms of value and relative value, if that makes sense. So this area down here is just darker. And let's get our study out. So according to my study, she's not quite this dark, but down here, so let's lighten that up just a little bit. It's a little bit lighter brown. So that's why it is helpful also to kind of do a study before you start painting as well, because it can help you work out some challenges before you get started. And again, this is just the first layer. So if we don't get it exactly right, it's not that big of a deal, because we'll be able to come back over it and layer colors and values over the top. So this is what's called kind of a block in. Okay. To help get us to those next phases. She does have quite a bit of red in here. So I'm dipping into my reddish mixture. So I generally do start with the darks, y'all, the darkest darks, because it's, and then I save my whites, my lightest lights for later. I did prime this with the Pentart Artemisia primer. So you can see, like, so what I'm trying to do is create some form, like the illusion of form around her neck, because the neck is a cylinder. So we're going kind of dark, medium value, and then transitioning to light to show that it's not just a flat object, y'all. Okay, and then I can see down here in her chin, we start to have some gradation as well. to show the roundness of the chin here. I hope this is a little bit interesting for you guys. Any questions about what I'm doing or why I'm choosing the colors that I'm doing? Because, you know, the face is kind of a map. You've got all these contours and things going on. And when you're doing portraiture, particularly like realism, you want it to look as realistic as possible, which means having depth and luminosity in the skin tones. And we'll kind of start blending things as we go. So you can see, like, it's just the right side of her face starting to take a little bit of shape. And let's see, let's get up here. Up in here, we kind of have this situation too. So just trying to get the darks and the midtones in before I start touching my mixtures that contain white. And part of the thing is that white tends to contaminate. When you're using white, it tends to contaminate your brush. Okay, so we're now starting to get into some more middle values here. So I don't clean my brush all the time, and mostly I'm just kind of wiping off on a paper towel. This side of the face is a little more plain. We have some neutral. But it's important for me to at least, like today, I need to get at least the block in of the face and the neck done with the colors that I've mixed, because it's almost impossible. It will be almost impossible for me to mix these same exact colors. So in order to make it look as cohesive as possible, I have to paint with this palette as much as possible today. So if we don't get to the neck, but today what I'll do is I'll actually end up painting, I'll paint the neck offline, and then next week we'll probably work on the arms. All right, so when I paint a portrait, it takes me, here, let's come in here and let's do the eye areas. I'm going to do, it takes me a good bit of time. Like usually 4 to 5 hours. So I probably will I will end up doing some of this offline on my own time so that we finish on time. But it's important for me to show y'all kind of the general idea. And my goal is, like, when I'm painting, is to try to make things look as dimensional, as three-dimensional as possible. So I'm thinking about the roundness. I'm thinking about the characteristics of the area that I'm painting. Like the arm here is going to end up being, the arm is a cylinder. So I have a dark side, a medium side, depending on where the light is falling. So I'm trying to capture sort of those ideas as I'm painting. All right, now I'm going to start working into some of my lighter mixtures. And I will be going lighter than this, but I'm going to save that for when my paint's a little bit drier. It's also easier to paint over a surface that's already been painted than it is to paint on a surface that hasn't been painted yet. So since I'm kind of applying this to just a primed board, it's a little bit tricky to get on. So I'll push these light areas even lighter in subsequent sessions. But for now, we're just kind of getting some sort of base tone or base idea. And then I use those lights to fix some of my mistakes in the areas where I might have gone a touch too dark. So I'm kind of working from like general to specific. Capturing the big ideas, the big masses first, and then I'll get into specific details, specific nuances, you know. So we're just trying to capture the big overall idea first. All right. Do this in the forehead. It's okay if I get into the hairline a little bit. And then this area here is going to be, we've got this little area here that's going to be a little bit lighter. So I'm going to grab my lighter paint and come in here. And again, I will make a mixture that's even lighter than this for my kind of my final. So it's all about kind of making some separation in the planes of the face. The face I wish I had brought my little head over here, but I've got this head and it kind of breaks the face down into all these planes. And that's what I'm trying to capture is you've got a light source. So you've got a light source kind of up here that's coming down, and it's capturing the light across the planes that are more vertical or more perpendicular or parallel, I guess, to the light. that makes sense. Then you have other planes that do kind of lie flat and recede into shadow. All right, where's my other? There's my other. All right, so let's work on this eye here, right under here, the brow. She's got some redness there. Is this helpful to have my palette down here, you guys, on the right-hand side of the screen? Is that helpful to have that down there? If it is, if it's not, let me know and I'll modify it for next time. So these areas kind of connect. And then our nose definitely has a lot of pink in it. All right, awesome. I'll keep the setup. Is there anything that you want me to change about the setup or think about a little bit more for next time? I'm not going to get too hung up on the nose right now. I'm just trying to get some color in there. All right, awesome. Thank you, Sue. Appreciate that. Okay, let's block this in. All right, let's get some of this lighter pink. Okay. I'm a little too sharp here. So just trying to sharpen some or soften some lines that are a little too sharp. All right, let's finish this eye, or at least part of it. We have some rosy tones. And then under this eye, we've got a little bit of brown. Okay, let's get this brow in here. Doesn't have to be perfect at this stage. We're just sort of indicating where it will go. Let's go ahead and get it over here too. All right, so we'll paint one eye. We've got enough time to paint one eye, and then I will finish up the other eye and the neck, at least the initial kind of block in. I will finish that up off camera, but I do want you to see this eye. Let's switch my all right, so when we're talking about the whites of the eye, a mistake that a lot of people make with that is they make the whites of the eye white. The whites of the eye are actually not white. In reality, they're kind of like a grayish color. So I always start a little darker than I think I need to, and then tone up from there. Because it's important to have some variation in the whites of the eyes so that you can add things like highlights and stuff like that. So this part of the eye, I don't know if you can see, but this part of the eye right here is darker than this part. You really only have one area on the eye that's super light. And the eye itself is also, it's an orb, right? So it's a round object. So I'm going to take this little darker color, and against the part of the eyeball that's back here, that's actually going to be kind of dark. And you also have some cast shadow that's happening with the eyelid up there. So I'm just kind of adding in a little bit of that darker value, and then I'm going to come in with this lighter value. And fill that in. And then we're going to mix a little bit lighter. So it's sort of kind of like layering it in degrees. And we can lighten that up more if we need to. I think we're okay at the moment. Okay. Next, I'm going to switch. I have a teeny tiny brush. We're going to find that. It's like my little tiny detail brush. And I'm going to switch over to that. But before I do, I'm going to take some of this light skin tone here and drop that in here just below the eyebrow. Carve that out a little bit more. So you can see, I say don't focus on the details, but sometimes along the way the details start to bother me. So I have to get them in. Okay. So, and it's just paint, y'all. So anything that we're doing, we can refine as we go. So this is sort of a pinky purplish tone here along the lids. And then on the inside here, I get really pink. And then here, in this corner, I've got some kind of purplish happening. And right now I'm just ignoring the whatchamacallit. I'm ignoring the eyelashes. Okay, now let's get this brown. So in the fold here, it's going to be pretty dark. I hope you can see okay. My hand might be covering up. Let's see, is my hand covering up? I'm trying to move my hand a little bit so you can see better, but my hand might be covering up some of these details, y'all. All right, so we're not going to quite go to black, even though her lashes are black. We're going to save that for more like finishing. But here I can see these lashes go, and I'm not even placing the lashes yet. I'm just kind of preparing the space for the lashes, if that makes sense. By adding those darks in. All right, let's see what we got. Her eyes are blue, clearly. that blue is going to be way too strong. So we need to gray them down a little bit. Okay. That's good for like the peripheral. Let's come in here. I'm getting more violet than I am blue here. Actually, might want to break out my cobalt. Yeah, I could put a little bit of green in because I'm getting too violet here. So let's. There we go. That's getting closer to it. It's too green. All right, I have a color called Cobalt. Let's break that out. Let's get rid of this. It's not doing it. Okay, so I'm going to mix a little bit of cobalt with black. And then mix that with a little bit of this white down here, this muddy white. Okay, that's better. Sort of a grayish blue. All right. All right, so I'm going to fill that in. Oops. Let's fill this in. Usually when I'm painting, I get up and take steps back and look at it from a distance, kind of as I go. I'm way boxed in here right now, so I'm not able to get up and move around. But generally, that's my process. I have a little bit of this black. Our pupils are kind of going that direction. And I have a lot more light blue happening. Kind of up under here. And up in here. All right. So that is the basic idea. For getting the block in of the eyeball. And now it's starting, now her face is starting to look like a face, right? Instead of like a blocky thing. So I'll repeat that over here. And then I'll actually finish the neck before the next session. And then we'll work on the arms on the next session. Before I let you go, though, I'm going to show you a step that that I like to do, which sort of helps me to tie everything together. And I usually do this. I don't do it as much as in the later stages, but I do it in the early stages. I take what's called, this is a comber brush, y'all. So I take what's called a comber brush, and I use this to soften my transitions and sort of blend my piece together. I've got a couple things I want to add before I do that, though. Let's go. Let's take this. Let's get this side is going to be lighter here. So I can see a couple things that I just want to sort of touch up before I do this. I'll place a couple little lighter spots here. To give her just a little bit more depth before I start my blending. And then okay. All right. So I take, this is called a comber brush, and it has these little kind of fanned edges. And I'm going to use this to soften my edges and to kind of harmonize some of my areas. Because at this stage, I don't want really hard edges. I want things to be very soft and subtle. So I use these, it's just a very, very light touch, y'all, on my comber brush to help smooth some of the transitions. I'm not fully committing yet to anything at this stage. We're just laying down really some base color. And I'm sort of taking my brush as I'm softening, I'm sort of moving it in the direction of the curves around the form, which helps to solidify that idea of things in their space. All right, so let's do the same with the hat. There's some areas where I want a hard edge and some areas where I just sort of want it to blend. And that helps to kind of soften, you know, so it doesn't look so outliney too. It helps to sort of soften and keep things harmonized with the background. So here along this hairline, I'll make that nice and soft. Okay, so that's going to be it for today, you guys. See what a difference that makes. And we have a lot of the portrait done, a lot of the face done. Y'all, believe it or not, we've actually done, we've actually kind of completed really the hardest part, because once you get those initial things blocked in, everything, you know, like once I get this initial color in, everything else is just refining details. So it took us about an hour to get most of the face in, you know, to where it actually starts to look, you know, you can see her starting to come to life. So y'all, I hope y'all enjoyed this. We're going to continue next week. Like I said, I will finish the other side of the face, and I'll also complete the neck before, because I've got my colors mixed right now and I don't want to lose my mixtures. So I'll do that. Next week we'll come in and we'll work on the arms. We may even be able to refine some of the features in the face as well next week, because it'll be dry, and then we can go on top and start layering some elements as well on top. So we've got 2 more weeks to go, guys, until we have a finished portrait. And I'm super excited. Thank y'all so much for being here. Before I drop off, do you guys have any questions for me or anything? Is there anything? Let me see if I can scroll up and see. Thank you, Sue. You're awesome. I really appreciate you being here. It was oil painting. All right. Okay, you guys. Thank y'all so much for being here, and I will see you next week. Same time, same place, Friday at noon. All right, y'all. Take care. Have a great weekend. Okay, bye-bye.